Hello and welcome to Unacademy. I welcome you all to the Hindu analysis. We'll be discussing 5 to 6 important articles out of the Indian newspaper. Now, we have an interesting set of topics again today, and it deals with, you can say, the implications of what is happening in the Middle East. First is about how oil, power, and politics, and something which we discussed yesterday, the wrecking ball politics which is happening, the disruption in this sector, how it is going to impact the global supply chain. We'll discuss that. This is a text and context article. Good morning to all of you. Then, in the AI summit, there was a lot of talk about taxation, tax governance, and AI. This is a very important article. Very, very, very important article because it talks about a project Insight which the Income Tax Department runs as we speak today. Then, this is for ISRO and the Navik system, how Navik system has just lost out of its one atomic clock based satellite, and that is going to be problematic for our geostationary or what we call as remote sensing. But more than that, the positioning system satellites, you need at least 4, but now there are only 3. Then we'll talk about smaller topics with regards to Jal Jeevan Mission, something which the parliamentary committee has said. Then we'll talk about how G, the replacement for Manrega, the state component has come into context, and 2 things which have happened yesterday with regards to Israel-Iran conflict, wherein Donald Trump has distanced himself from Israeli action, what has happened in Iran with regards to the energy infrastructure being hit, and Iran responded by blowing up and targeting Qatar's biggest LNG plant, and that has in turn led to him to tweet about how that was not on the cards and Israel is acting in a rogue way, at least in an, you can say, independent fashion other than taking US on board. So we'll discuss these 2 together in the end. So before I begin, as I had shown you yesterday, 18th March 17999, this is over. Yesterday was 19th March, 18999 is over. And if you still have this urge to become part of the Unacademy family, on 20th and 21st, we have the 19999 offer, which is going to run, and you have to use the code IS English. Now, some of you had asked me this in the marathon, that what is the status of the Conquer Prelims phases. And as you know, we are in phase 3 and we've completed phase 4 per se, that we're doing one shot marathons, but we will again be back on the app. So on the Unacademy app, we will be back with regards to what is called as high yielding areas. Very shortly, you will be shared the schedule for this phase also, but it is going to start from 23rd of March in most probable fashion. Most probably 23rd of March we will start, and it is going to run at 3 different time slots. You have to follow the educator. It will be from 12 to 2, from 3 to 5, and 6 to 8. These will be the 2-hour slots in which we will be covering high yielding areas of different subjects, and this could also be different subjects, 2 to 3 sessions. For example, for history, we plan 23rd, 24th, and 25th. These 3 days we will be discussing all the major areas which come in the examination. For example, Buddhism, Jainism. For example, we'll discuss the national movement. High yielding areas will be covering so that you can revise as quickly as possible. So now from marathons to this micro area, but for this you have to go to the Unacademy app. These will be special sessions. And if it's a special session, you also know that it is going to be a free session. It is free for all to join. So please mark your calendars. There will be a community post for sure very soon. We'll also do shorts to tell you when is our sessions and what we are going to cover. So this is just an update for a lot of students who are asking what is the status of Concur Prelims per se in the app and on the YouTube platform. YouTube platform, as I said, that the marathons are going to be rearranged and scheduled as per the availability of the faculty. Okay, can we start, everyone? I hope this quenches your thirst with regards to what is happening with regards to time, Concur Prelims, and general understanding. Okay, perfect. Now, the first topic which we have to cover is called Oil Power Politics of Disruption. Now, this is a text and context article, has a lot of data, but I'll be very honest with you, it does not have a real, you can say, point per se. It's a summarization what is happening, and it has one simple conclusion. Rather than giving us problems, way forward, it gives us one conclusion and one trend which is important. So what we'll do is we'll try to bring all of these things together and make sense of it. Now, Iran-Israel conflict, major escalation or a fallout of that is what is happening in the Strait of Hormuz. India has now recently sent multiple naval ships to escort the LPG and crude oil ships, and in the past 7 days, at least 5 to 6 ships have also docked into different ports of India. But the Strait of Hormuz is a very important choke point which controls close to 1/5 of the world's crude oil supply. Now, this is not a new thing. This is something which everybody is talking about. With the global economy, Persian Gulf, Strait of Hormuz is very, very important. About 1/5 of oil, all the oil supplied worldwide goes through this sector. Nothing out of the box. But this article gives you certain things which you can use for the examination well, or can be asked in the examination. For example, we also know that India is the world's second largest importer of crude oil and the third largest consumer of crude oil. Again, if you did not know this, you should know this. Second largest importer, third largest consumer, meaning we import at the second largest way, but we consume in the third, with China and America being first and second. Now, this again is not something new. But why this article is generally important is because of this data. This data is very valuable. This data is very valuable. Why do I say that? Because it tells you oil production in blue and oil consumption in red. So, for example, a country like the U.S., because of its shale gas production, it is more or less self-sufficient, meaning it produces as much as it consumes, or rather it produces more than what it consumes. Then we have countries such as Saudi Arabia, Russia, UAE, Iran, and West Asia as a region per se. You can see how they produce more than what they consume. And this is where you can see a major difference between the blue and the red. And a corollary of this is, or just you can say extension of this would be countries like India and China. India, the blue is very low, red is very, very high, and China again, red is very, very high, blue is very, very low. So we are countries, or India and China would be countries which consume a lot but produce not. As a region, Asia Pacific generally consumes quite a lot but produces less. EU again, same story, consumes quite a lot, produces less. North America, because of Venezuela and the Latin American countries, it is the other way around. So North America would be US and Canada, but we take into account the Americas per se, again this is going to be the same trend. Now again, what is the point of this discussion? The point of this discussion is, first you have to understand the overall regional understanding. North America and West Asia are crude oil, or rather what we call as energy positive. Asia Pacific is energy negative because we consume more than what we produce. And European Union is again a energy negative area. So these two areas, Asia Pacific and European Union, don't produce but consume. At the same point of time, West Asia and North America produces quite a lot, consumes this. Now, the basic point of this article is that with UAE, Iran, Saudi Arabia and West Asia generally under crisis right now, and the Strait of Hormuz being blocked for any form of movement or general movement per se, all of this is playing very well into the hands of Russia. Russian energy, oil and gas is becoming more and more desirable. Is becoming more and more desirable, both for India and the EU. So a fallout of this whole war is that now Russian oil and gas has again become relevant, and the sanctions which the EU had pushed on Russia are now being reconsidered or will be reconsidered because of the way West Asia is now in a crisis and Strait of Hormuz, 1/5 of the production itself is disrupted. Now, there are two perspectives here. The US, it has not been a country which has not seen shocks. The US has previously also seen shocks when it comes to the energy sector. It is more or less energy positive because of shale gas production, but it had responded in the 1950s and 1970s in two ways via whenever there was a shock in the energy market. First, what they used to do was they used to generally increase their production of shale gas so as to make them immune to the shocks which come in the global supply chain. But they also have actively involved themselves in the Gulf War, in the Iraq War, in Venezuela, and now in the US-Israel-Iran war so as to control the supply per se. Now, they underestimated how Iran is going to respond, and there is now a proper crisis in this sector along with the global supply chain. But the point is, US has always had two standard responses. Either increase production or get involved and control the market itself. Now, here India has an opportunity and India should use that opportunity. See, India crude oil imports are very, very high and exports is very, very low. Equally, China, same story. So therefore, India has already increased its share of Russian oil to 39%. And we just reduced it from 40% because of Trump itself. Trump said we will give you access to Venezuelan oil, and the idea was that India will buy less Russian oil. Now, with the basic trend of the barrel reaching $114, this is the right scenario for Russia's resurrection as an energy power, as a power which can substitute West Asia itself. As I said, this article gives you a lot of points, but does not give you any per se argument. It's just random conclusions. Now, let's do one thing. Let's systematize this knowledge. What can we take out of this article? What can we use in the mains examination? What can we use in the prelims examination? There are 5 to 10 different points. The first valuable information which is given to us is India's position as the second largest importer and third largest consumer. This you may know, but there is some information which is given in a consolidated fashion. Then, second thing which we get to know is Strait of Hormuz one-fifth of global oil movement and supply. This you can use for any topic pertaining to this coming in the examination. Then the third point which we get to know is that Russia can substitute the West Asian supply. West Asian supply. There's also one interesting point here, which is US on an average uses 10 times higher energy supply per person per capita consumption and 2.4 times higher than China. Meaning, fourth point is going to be that USA 10x India's per capita energy, and this tells you how we still are in that zone where we are not using our full potential. Now, the fifth point is West Asia, North America are energy positive, whilst EU and Asia Pacific are energy negative. And last but not the least, and this is an important point, US only knows two reactions: increase shale production or involve itself in the region. And I think we know what they're doing as of right now. So if these 6 points are clear in your mind, and at the same point of time, you know where to use them, because you will get multiple opportunities in the examination to write this down either as an introduction, as a conclusion, somewhere. But sir, though we can go for Russian oil, but due to vagueness of USA tariff policy and BTA, as of right now, Anushka, Trump himself and US itself is urging EU and India to buy Russian oil, so as to make sure that if Russian oil comes into circulation, there will be a little bit of correction in the prices of the Russian of the crude oil itself. This is basically called this is what Trump has created as a mess. Trump wants us to move away from Russia, but looking at the whole scenario, there is only one way out, which is through Russia itself. Fourth point is that a person in India, for example, take me as an example, and take, for example, Trump as an example. Trump uses 10 times more energy, be it fuel, be it electricity, be it kerosene, be it whatever, more than me, and 2.4 times more than a Chinese counterpart. What this means is that though they are producing a lot of energy, they consume a lot of energy also. We are not consuming electricity because one person's energy demand is very high. Per capita consumption is not very high. We are a big population, we have energy demands, but it is still not comparable to what the Americans are doing. If Americans had the same amount of population, they would be taking 10 times more energy in that regard. That is what this fourth point means. The simple point is there are scattered understandings and scattered points given in this article. I brought all of them into focus for you. You can either take a screenshot, you will get the access to this PPT also, whatever you want. But please do use this data correctly and if any of this data is quoted in the examination, second largest, third consumer, you should be able to identify if it is correct or incorrect. Will you be able to do that? Because this data is valuable. You may find it online. You may have to filter it out of multiple sources. We have readily one source which gives us the overall trend. Overall trend is Russia's energy supply is going to become important for the world because of what is happening in West Asia. Over 20 days now into this war, this is only going to either become worse, but we are seeing that the Americans are now feeling the heat of this war. Fifth and sixth point. Fifth point is West Asia produces more than what it consumes. North America produces more than what it consumes. At the same point of time, EU and Asia Pacific are energy deficient. They don't produce, but they consume. And sixth point is very simple. Whenever there has been an energy crisis, they have always given two responses. The US either increases its production so as to push more supply into the market, or it will get involved in that war or conflict in order to control the whole conflict or the country itself. Iraq war being very important that was. Sorted everyone. Because you can get a question. How to navigate the code-based questions? You said when Gandhi said section. See, Ketki, that is a one-off question. That is a one-off question. Don't chase it. If there are no more questions like that which is coming, if they give it again, then you may need to worry. But one-off question, don't have to worry. And in those type of questions, generally look at the context. Who would, in those options, make that statement in the context of that question? That's the whole point. But you don't have to chase them. If you will start to learn quotes, it will become very, very difficult. Right? Thank you, Ketki, for that message. Okay, now you can get a question like this. Simple, straightforward question like this. Discuss the implications of the West Asian crisis on energy supply chain. This is a very straightforward question which can come in the examination, but you can get more complicated questions also. A more complicated question could be West Asia's pain is Russia's gain. Elucidate. Simple, straightforward. And you need to have an understanding how Russia gains out of this. Are we sorted about this, everyone? Both type of questions you can tackle. Yes, sir. Okay. Now, moving on to the second article. The second article deals with an important scheme, which is not new, but has been in the news for multiple reasons. Now, we all know that recently there was an AI summit which happened. And when it comes to tax data, India has some problems. I've discussed this previously also. For example, tax to GDP ratio is only 16%, meaning GDP tax component is only 16%, which is extremely low for a developing country, emerging country. At the same point of time, India loses out 4.3% to tax evasion also. So, it's not that India's tax regime is perfect or will be perfect or every other country's is very good. It's just that tax behavior in India is very, very different. We will find each and every flaw to find a loophole to not pay taxes. And as it is, the tax to GDP ratio and the taxed population, not indirect but direct taxation is very low. In that context, in the AI summit, a lot of people said that in the tax governance structure of India, AI should be used. And therein lies this very important initiative which is called as Project Insight. Now, this will become important for you when it comes to the examination. Project Insight, or PI as we will call it, is not a new system. It was implemented in 2019 only, but in 2017 it was envisaged. This uses AI. So now what we have to understand, and this is a complete article in itself, we have to understand wherein lies, what are the ways in which AI is used, can be used, positives and challenges. Basically, it's a complete article. Now, when we talk about Project Insight, it was launched in 2017, became operational in 2019, and it has two major components. One is called Income Tax Transaction Analysis Center. And basically this transaction, what is called as INTRAC, which is Income Tax Transaction Analysis Center, what it does is it collates all the data. For example, if I'm a taxpayer, what it will do is it will take all the data, which is my credit card spendings, my debit card spendings, what I'm spending. For example, if I'm going abroad, it will take into consideration my income tax. It will also take into consideration what I'm giving as income tax. It will take into consideration the income which I have, if any professional fees is there or not. And if a person, for example, a human is doing all this collation, it takes time. But what AI does is Income Tax Department Nodal Agency, what it does is it simply uses a 360-degree approach to create a financial profile. It will take all my data together, all of my data, banking, financial, property, securities, which is basically stock market, credit card, GST, along with everything will be collated in one space. This allows the Income Tax Department to get a holistic perspective in how I'm spending and earning. Because what used to happen previously was that it was very difficult to take all of this data together. Because I'm also in the securities market, I'm in the BSE and NSE also. I'm also in the FD market, I'm having multiple FDs. I'm also in buying government bonds, I'm buying bonds. I'm also buying Kisan Vikas Patra. I'm also taking a lot of recurring deposits. I have professional fees also. I'm paying GST also. I'm taking GST compensation also. A lot of data is there. So this INTRAC, which is Income Tax Taxation Analysis Center, it collates all the data. Therefore, that is why you can't evade taxes if you are in India per se, and every transaction will be logged or captured for sure. Until and unless you are a very, very wealthy personality or you are Ambani Adani yourself, then only you get these tax waivers and these big scams happen. As a normal citizen, as a tax paying citizen, even if you will buy one toffee from a Panwadi, it will be captured for sure. Because either you will do it from Paytm, GPay, or you will do it from UPI, it will be captured in some transaction for sure. So as a normal paying citizen, INTRAC mostly works. At the same point of time, there is a second, until you're basically Lalit Modi, you don't really need to worry about the fact that they will not be able to capture or not. It will be captured. The second is called Compliance Management Centralization Processing Center, CMCPC. Centralized Processing Center. If you pay taxes, you would know CPC is a word which comes through multiple times. There's always a digital CPC which is allocated to you, and there's a centralized compliance management center for that also. Now, under this concept, this is basically what is called as the non-intrusive nudges which comes to you. So you must have seen that before advance tax, you will get messages. When you will pay your taxes, you will get emails. When you pay less taxes, you will again get emails. When you have a demand deposit, which is or demand from the IT department, again you get emails. basically all the SMS and email systems have also been automated. So the IT department is using AI, and this is important for you. AI is used by the IT income tax department in two ways. First, it is used to capture data, capture and collate data. At the same point of time, it also tries to dictate behavior via nudges in the form of SMS or email. They're non-intrusive in the way that they are just normative in the beginning. Normative means what you should be doing. What you should be doing. So pay your taxes by 1st of July, pay your taxes by 1st of September, the date of taxation has improved, advanced tax date has come through, all of these things happen. If you're a taxpayer, you would know a lot of this data and emails comes from the IT department from time to time. So from collation through Interact to the CPC, both basically are solving two major issues for the IT department: collation of data and the way you basically automate basic nudges which goes to the person. Now, what is the achievement here? What is the outcome here? Have been able to actually achieve anything out of Interact or out of the CPC based understanding? And here again we have valuable information in the you can say article, because it tells you how this has helped. How this has helped. So because of using AI, there are four major benefits. There are four major benefits of using AI in tax. First is accurate assessing. This is because of Interact. Then tax administrators can prioritize evasion cases and not small cases, meaning they don't have to basically sit with a calculator and calculate your tax. It can automate routine tax administration. That is what CPC is doing. And enhance taxpayer services by giving them correct returns and also find issues or errors. So you get better compliance, better behavior, better services from the IT. Now, this can be seen in the past 10 years or even take 5 years, there has been change. For example, because of the Interact and CPC, over 1 crore revised filings have happened. 11,000 crores has more been collected. 19,501 taxpayer was nudged. 62% got their tax return information corrected. 30,000 taxpayers were reported and their overseas assets and crypto income was also declared. Recovered 6.25 lakh taxpayer. There were 963 crore false deductions which were then returned back. Time reduced from 93 days for processing to 17 days. And analysis between 2019-2020 tells us big data and AI detection has led to 70,000 crore suppressed sales being reported in that regard. Again, please do not learn this, because this is of no use to you. No use to you. You will never be able to remember it in the exam context. Never. Too much information. But what you can do is you can remember this benefits with regards to accuracy, with regards to tax administration, with regards to routine taxation, and with regards to enhanced security services. This has to be learned, not this. So outcome is better governance, better compliance, less errors, and tax evasion has been spotted. Everybody on the same page with me till this point? Everybody on the same page with me? So benefits, if we talk about benefits, is enhanced experience, routine tasks can be done easily, and efficiency. Okay. Now, there are also challenges to this concept. And when we talk about the challenges, all of these challenges is because of AI based assessment in turn has inherent challenges. So in a way, this article is fully complete in itself. So for example, it says that AI is as good as the data it receives. Meaning, if the input data is problematic, it could also lead to false tax compliance issues. Meaning, see, in India, some people have complicated tax regimes or tax structures. So, legitimate complexity could be seen as tax evasion. This is because the input data would prove that it is tax evasion, but that person is not doing that. So, data quality which input is given from the IT department to project inside is important. So, data quality has to be controlled. Second is called algorithm bias. Algorithm bias means is, as we know, AI absorbs all the biases. It absorbs all the biases of the internet, of humans, and acts in the same way because input data matters. So if there is a certain trend which emerges that certain, for example, men, certain community, certain region, if there is more tax fraud in that area, it may start to give more and more, you can say, what we call as tax evasion issues, or it would give red flags on that specific region. It would start to be biased towards that community or towards that region. At the same point of time, due process is a big issue. Why was I flagged? Why was my tax return not filed in the right way? There is issue wherein if there is some form of bias within the system itself, what process was used to then flag my account and maybe send me a demand notice? There's no compliance for that. There's no accountability. It's an AI based system. And last but not the least is data privacy also. Because at the end of the day, AI is not secure in itself. If we are feeding so much data into the AI itself, what does the AI do with it other than collating is equally important. So all of this is not a problem which the IT department has per se. It is because of the way AI integration creates issues for them. So in a very simple way, what we've understood is IT and AI. We've understood the benefits, which would be ease, which would be efficiency, which would be enhanced experience and better assessment. We've also understood the outcomes, but also brings in challenges. Now, in the examination, any two can be made as a combination of questions. What are the benefits of using AI in tax governance? Should there be AI in tax governance? What are the fallouts of AI in tax governance? I have made them into systematic points here. You just need to know two lines, which you can then further expand. So here challenges would be data privacy. It would be data bias. It would be what is called as input data quality and accountability. Sorted? Everyone, I hope this is sorted. Nothing out of the box per se. Simple, straightforward. Again, the reason why I make these mind maps in front of you is I'm trying to tell you how to basically use this data together. Sometimes the most important skill which a UPSC aspirant needs is how to condense data. Notes making, as it is called. So this is how you make notes, which is when there's a lot of data in front of you, lot of points coming together, just making it into a mind map where you have basic key terms there may help you in systematizing current affairs and even in history, even in polity, even in geography, these things help, which is having, and even in economics, it helps to have mind maps which give you guiding light. Right? Okay. So our two big articles are done. Now, something which is concerning. So we know that we have something called the NAVIC program, which is ISRO's response to GPS. GPS is Global Positioning System. NAVIC works for Indian subcontinent. And NAVIC was a need which was generated during the Kargil war when the Americans were not ready to give us any data with regards to GPS data with regards to the Kargil sector and our borders. So in the Kargil war, we realized having our own remote sensing satellites are very, very important. So the Indian remote sensing satellite system, which is called NAVIC, is very, very important. Now the problem which has emerged recently is remote sensing satellites and the NAVIC constellation works on what is called as remote sensing satellites PNT status, meaning every satellite has a position, navigation, timing system inside it. Now, obviously, in the space, your basic clock, which needs gravity to work, it is not going to work. So, what is used is atomic clocks. Now, previously, we used to use atomic clocks which were produced by a Swiss company. And unfortunately, that clock has been problematic for us for a very, very long time. Meaning, it has a certain life. It never gives us more. It only gives us less or exact. And this is what has happened is that there is a need for 4 satellites to make the NAVIC program work properly. But we have lost one satellite just 10 days back because of its atomic clock, which has gone dead. On 13th of March, out of the 4, one lost its atomic clock. And now the constellation is incomplete. We need at least 4. We now have 3. And what is even more problematic is ISRO had already, see, there is a certain life of these satellites, mostly 10 years. The atomic clock went just 3 days after completing 10 years, but the replacement satellite is not in place. So the NVS 02, NVS 01 was launched and one satellite was replaced, but the problem is NVS 02, which is now going to be decommissioned, its replacement satellite was pushed into the wrong orbit recently. And therefore, now we are using indigenous PNT systems and atomic clocks. But the problem is the launch which happened in May of 2023 was able to replace NVS-01. But the recent launch to replace NVS-02, it pushed the satellite into the wrong orbit. Now our constellation is incomplete. And we need it for defense purposes. Now, the article per se does not have a lot of, you can say, empathy for the ISRO. And it points out to multiple things why ISRO is not able to very quickly replace these satellites, and at the same point of time has not prioritized the replacement of the Navik system. It says that firstly, there is poor launch rate. PSLV launches happen very, very slow and takes a lot of time. At the same point of time, the inefficiency in budgeting, which is a standard issue. ISRO has always been on a shoestring budget. It is always pushed to a shoestring budget. It is always made to work in less money. At the same point of time, there is a lot of chatter and a lot of emphasis which is being pushed towards Gaganyaan program. If you know what is Gaganyaan, Gaganyaan is India's attempt to put an Indian into space, LEO, low Earth orbit. And therefore, the past PSLV launches failure, along with the wrong orbital installation, along with poor launch rate, along with Gaganyaan being the main program, along with no real budget, along with no time for R&D, has in turn led to ISRO now being in a pickle. And that problem is that now we are in a space where ISRO does not really have the launch capacity and R&D capacity and the, you can say, future launches, where it will need to replace at least 3 of the next satellites within the next 4 years. And this is where this article says that ISRO has to get its act together. Because if we are going to now mess up Navik, we are going to be back at the point where we started with Kargil. Because GPS, we cannot rely per se. We need an alternative, and this was the only alternative, and it is right now in a crisis. Must fix issues before launch of next second generation satellites. Sometimes unnecessarily harsh, but a reality check for us. A reality check for us. So the ISRO needs better budgeting and also needs to prioritize Navik program. Okay. So we have discussed 3 big articles, 3 editorials. First, we tried to understand the concept of the fallout and how Russia is gaining because of the West Asian crisis. Second, we were able to understand IT and AI. And third, we were able to understand how ISRO is in a bit of a crisis when it comes to Navik, and Navik needs to be, the constellation needs to be completed as quickly as possible. I hope all of us are on the same page with regards to these 3 topics. Now, moving on to smaller topics. The Jal Jeevan Mission, there's a very unique issue, but an inevitable issue which has emerged. You may have seen that the Jal Jeevan Mission was also in a lot of controversy and in the news because of how IAS officers had pushed in multiple same images, multiple places. A lot of grants were given. They were even given awards. And I will not name that person, but one of the toppers of UPSC had pushed her own wedding card into the Jal Jeevan Mission portal as a way of showing proof for Jal Jeevan compliance. Now, a parliamentary committee has pointed out a much bigger issue than the basic tactics used by bureaucrats to get compliance, which is that most of the sources for the Jal Shakti mission, for which close to 8.6 lakh crore was allocated, is that the source to which these taps are connected, they will not sustain more than 1 to 2 years. Water resources are being exhausted within 1 to 2 years. And this is where the ministry has very specifically pointed out that the source to tap scheme should be made on sustainable water resources. Groundwater is not sustainable. So basically, what the ministry has recently pointed out is that we have the Jal Jeevan Mission, but the Jal Jeevan Mission is right now just trying to show compliance by linking the taps to sources which will not be able to take the demand after 1 to 2 years. And therefore, there is a need to change the approach in this scheme. This is the only point this article wants to make. That sustainable water resources should be there. So again, yes, Anushka is giving us an example. Water connection is there, but there is no water itself. Taps were connected to household, but in the end, there was nothing. In the end, there was nothing. 1 year water came, thereafter water went out, and there was nothing. The source itself dried up. Be it a pond, be it a lake, be it anything. Moving on to something which is as a tussle between the center and the state right now. We all know that Manrega scheme was replaced by a scheme called G-Ramji. And the Guarantee for Rozgar and Ajivik Mission Grameen Act had a certain component. The component was that the union government will not hold and will not always bear the brunt of the cost of the G-Ramji Act or Manrega per se. Now, what we are seeing here is that 24 states and union territories, in an address made in the parliament itself, they have already started to allocate some money for this Employment Generation Act. The exact what we call as ratio in which money has to be shared has not been talked about, but close to 31,000 crores has been allocated by the states and 95,000 crores has been the money allocated by the center. We have to see when section 45 of this act comes into context based on real demand and how much has to be paid. But states are already started to allocate some money for this so that they are not caught off guard, and that is being done based on what they had spent previously. So this is again a certain way in which states are becoming more and more, you can say, preemptively saving money so as to fund G-Ramji Act. Again, not a complete article in itself. Not everything is given here. Just again a red flag, or you can say a green flag for us here. That article was a red flag. This article is a green flag. That see, states are doing and they need to comply. Now, the last thing which I want to discuss today before I close this session is what has happened in the past 48 hours. Israel attacked an energy infrastructure site of Iran, and in retaliation, Iran has struck one of the biggest LNG plants in the world in Qatar. 47% of all LNG which is produced in this Qatari LNG plant, and that has now been hit what is called the Ras Lafan industrial city. It has been now hit by Iran's ballistic missile and drones. This will have an implication, because we also used to import from this same exact industrial city natural gas. Though we have diversified sources, but 47% of our import was from Qatar, and now Qatar's LNG plant is under attack. Now, this is part of a larger concept. That larger concept is that this was not sanctioned by the US. The US recently has argued, Donald Trump has tweeted that Tel Aviv would not target extremely important and valuable sites again, much like Qatar, the way Israel attacked a Tehran-based energy infrastructure. Simple, straightforward point which is emerging is that energy infrastructure being hit, the bigger cost is on the West Asian allies of the US rather than Iran. Iran has nothing to lose. And that is where we are seeing the cracks within the relationship of the US and Israel emerging, because Trump is not very happy about this. Why? Without any prior permission, Israel attacked a site which was not sanctioned by the US. In retaliation, Iran then attacked multiple installments, including the LNG plant, which is now going to create a crisis within the LNG space for sure. So, this is again something which is still emerging, something new is happening each and every day. Dubai airport being closed from time to time. West Asia is in a mess right now, but this is also going to impact you and me very soon, because this Qatari LNG plant was one of the biggest in the world and very important for global supply chain. So, before I end this session, we have discussed 6 to 7 simple straightforward topics. You just have to now make sense of them. AI and IT is a complete article in itself. You can use a lot of data for the examination. You have to understand that the Israel-Iran conflict is still being fought over different contexts, but US is now feeling the frustration and the heat of all of this. At the same point of time, you should note that Jal Jeevan Mission is now running into a problem which they may have shown compliance initially, but they will not be able to do it later. And at the same point of time, states have started to allocate money for the G-Ram-G Act. And the last, but not the least point is, Russia is going to gain out of this based on the data which is coming through. So I will see you on at 4 p.m. for the students who will join me for revision through questions on the Unacademy app special session. And I will also see you on Monday with regards to the Conquer Prelims session with regards to high yielding areas at 3 p.m. All my sessions are at 3 to 5 p.m. 23rd, 24th, 25th. You will get all the official announcements and data very soon, but I am just giving you a heads up for that. Thank you. Take care.